G'day poker people, welcome back. This video is the finale of my $60 an hour at 1-3 challenge. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video to see exactly what my win rate was playing these 1-3 games. I've only got a few hours left before I hit 50 hours in the month of December and collect my $500 bonus at Derby Lane. So after I close this one out, I'm probably going to be done playing 1-3 in all honesty. Whether I win, lose or draw the challenge, I do have a bankroll big enough now where I can comfortably buy back into the 2-5 games. The whole reason I started to play 1-3 regularly was partially because I really do love Derby Lane and their 1-3 game. The promotion where they give away 500 for 50 hours play is amazing, particularly if you are a 1-3 player. I love the room as well, great staff there. Love that they let me film vlogs as well, that is awesome. Got a lot of good content for you guys. But the main reason I started playing smaller games was that about 6 months ago from when this vlog was shot, I bought a house and the down payment for the house essentially swallowed up my whole bankroll, and I needed to drop down at stakes because the risk of ruin would have been too high if I was playing a bigger game. So I regularly started playing 1-3. Then I found the Derby Lane game, which I actually really loved. But at this point I've saved up enough money where I can comfortably afford to play bigger stakes and hopefully make more money in the long run doing so. But for now, I am so close to making $60 an hour at 1-3. We're at $59 an hour with just one session left. Will I make enough to skip over that $60 an hour mark, or will I fall below it and have a bad session? This session is do or die. Whether we do it, whether we not, it all comes down to this. This is the finale for the $60 an hour at 1-3 challenge. And for the last time, let's gamble at 1-3 and let's go! So for the very last time, we are in the 1-3 streets at Derby Lane for 1,000 bangers where we play this first interesting hand. Passive low jack open limb, so that I'm on the button with Queen 8 of hearts. Definitely a hand strong enough to raise. I make a 20 and then I get called by two passive players in the blinds. The original limper actually folds. So a total of 3 ways to a flop of 10-5-4 with 2 hearts. So we do have the flush draw in position here. But then something interesting happens. Small blind checks and the big blind actually leads out for 20. Now I think when they lead out here, their range is going to have a lot of strong but non-nutted hands. Like if they did have a set or an overpair on this board, I think they would either lead out for a larger size, trying to get max value from draws, or they will go for the check raise. So when they lay out here, I think they're going to have a lot of single pair hands, like maybe ace-5 through 10-8, for example, or the pocket pairs in between those, or a nut flush draw, some type of flush draw. So when we're against that range and we are going to get to play the potting position facing a bet this size, I think we have a pretty clear-cut call, which is what I decide to do. Then the small blind calls as well. So we're still 3 ways to a turn, which is the 9 of clubs. I will take that turn. We now have a straight draw to go along with our flush draw. Small blind checks and the big blind bets again. He goes ahead and makes it 40, so another relatively small bet to the size of the pot. When the action's on me here, I definitely want to start attacking their weak range. Some possibility they did turn 10-9, although having said that, I think they might increase their bet size on a board this wet if they did have that specific hand. So I think their strongest hands they're going to have here are like the 10-8, Jack-10, or maybe like a 9x of hearts, for example, and we just want to put pressure on that type of range. Maybe force out the small blind with their weaker range as well. So I go ahead and raise it up to 125. And then the small blind actually cold calls my raise. Now, when they cold call, I think they have a very narrow defined range here. I think they are going to have a lot of hands like the nut flush draws, maybe a nut straight draw, for example, or they're going to have a really strong hand, essentially an overpair or better. They definitely could have turned to 10-9 because they have all the offsuit combinations in their range. So it is very concerning when they call. I think they're going to have a lot of really strong hands. And of course, naturally, when they call, the big blind calls as well, now that they're getting a better price. So I am concerned about the small blinds range here, so it will be really good if we could hit, because I think we'll win a big pot. And then the river is the 7 of clubs. We did not actually hit. We still only have queen high on the river. And when the action checks to me, it is very tempting to go ahead and bluff here. Just because we have queen high and I'm not going to check and win. And I think there's some realm of possibility where both of the opponents had draws that they are just going to fold to essentially any bet here. but I really don't want to go too large with the bet sizing because I do think the small blind has those really strong hands that they can call down with. It's just the downside to using a smaller size is that the big blind is going to call with some of their 10x combinations that would have folded if I used an all-in sizing. Also, I really could go either way, maybe even check back and give up, although that would absolutely suck if we do end up losing to ace high or like 9x of hearts. And you know me, I'm not the type to give up. I go ahead and bet. I make it 125 again, using the smaller size, really just hoping to fold out better draws or 9x combinations. I make it 125, and then the small blind folds, so there you go, very likely they did have a draw. And then the big blind doesn't waste too much time before calling. Not what we wanted to see. I end up showing my queen high, and then they show Jack 10. So there you go, they did have one of the stronger 10x combinations, and I really do think they would have folded that hand to a larger bet size. And yeah, my logic for not using the large bet size I think is solid, but it was a little bit tilting to see they had one of the hands that was going to be very elastic on the river. So even though I don't hate my bluff in the previous hand, there definitely is a little bit of tilt going on with the fact that a larger bet size would have worked as a bluff. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that tilt creep into how I play this next hand. Whatever the case though, things start off pretty good because I'm on the button with ace 10 of spades. I raise it up to 10 and then I get called by both of the blinds. So we are getting to play this pot in position, and the flop is 8-7-3 with 2 clubs. The action checks to me, and I think this is a pretty no-brainer spot to just check back. Take a free turn. We do have some showdown value with our ace strong kicker. Don't really like c-bet merge bluffing type thing into 2 opponents. So I think checking's a prudent play. As I alluded to earlier, we are on a bit of tilt here. I do mix in the c-bet stab. I make it 15, and then rightfully so, I get called by both villains. So serves me right for stabbing in a multi-way pot. Whatever the case though, we are still 3 ways to a turn, which is the jack of diamonds, putting out backdoor diamonds. Both of the villains check it over to me again, and I mean, I think I should have checked the flop, so I should definitely be checking this turn. I think that's probably the correct way to play this hand, but again, with my tilt and my over-aggression bias, I decide to stab at it again. The logic behind it would be this is going to be a scary turn card for a lot of my opponents, 8x combinations, and if my opponents do both have a lot of flush draws in their range, then we can put a lot of pressure on them on the river unless they do get there, and unblocking clubs and diamonds with this hand kind of makes it an efficient bluff to use, but with the fact it's multi-way and we have to bluff 2 different ranges, probably a good spot to just check back and try and hit our gut shot on the river. You know me, this hand wouldn't have made the vlog if I did that though. I put in another stab, I go ahead and make it 40, and then serves me right, both villains call yet again. What is going on with this hand? I am absolutely awful at bluffing, clearly, and the river is the queen of diamonds, putting in the backdoor diamonds, and the action checks to me yet again. Now, look, I do think I should have given up on the flop and on the turn, and giving up here on the river wouldn't be totally awful either, but the thing is, this run out is going to be absolutely awful for a lot of my opponent's range. Their pocket 10s, their pocket 9s are going to hate this run out. Unless they do have 2 pair, then I think it's going to be pretty hard for them to call a bet. You know, maybe queen x of clubs can call, but if they did have anything that was 2 pair, a set, or a straight, I think they would have check raised earlier on a board this wet. So I kind of want to put the screws to them with a really large bet here. I go ahead and make it 225. This probably is a bit spewy. If we were in a heads-up pot, I would really like the play, but trying to bluff 2 different ranges, I don't know, man. It's probably not the right thing to do. Whatever the case, though, we are blasting away today. I made it 225. The small blind folds pretty quickly, and then the big blind is in the tank, probably about 30 seconds or so, and I'm like shitting myself, like, oh, do they have like ace jack? Do they hit like queen x of clubs and they're thinking about it? Just trying to keep my poker face, but then after about 45 seconds of tanking, villain throws in the call. Not good, not what we wanted to see. I end up showing my ace high, and then the villain shows pocket 9s. Oh my god, I can't believe they called me down that light. Clearly this was an absolute pump by me. I don't know whether this is just not the type of opponent you want to bluff at all, or if this opponent just like thinks I'm a complete maniac. I mean, it is the second time I've shown a bluff this session, but yeah, absolutely kicking myself for the unforced error that was the triple barrel bluff. Definitely punting away to start things off. Let's try and regroup and play this next hand a lot better. A tight aggressive player opens 15 under the gun. They get 2 callers before the action's on my small blind with king queen offsuit. I go ahead and mix in 3-bet squeeze here. It's going to be very tempting in a multi-way situation when I'm out of position, but maybe just a little bit too loose with the offsuit combination of this hand. Whatever the case though, folding is boring. I go ahead and make it 90, and then I only get called by the initial raiser. So it heads up to a flop of Queen 9-7 rainbow. Beautiful flop. My default when I'm out of position is to check it over to the opponent in a heads up pot. So that's what I do here. I check it. Don't really like this play in this specific situation. If people are calling me down with pocket nines or with 2 overcards and straights and flushes on the board, I'm probably just having an aggressive image, and I should be trying to exploit that by betting thinly for value. So I think maybe triple barreling this hand will be a much higher EV play. But just playing in default, a bit of autopilot, I do check it. Not in love with the play though. And then the villain does check back. So we are heads up to a turn, which is the 4 of clubs, putting out backdoor clubs. Now I catch up to where I should have been on the flop, and I do start betting. I go ahead and make it 120. And then the villain doesn't think too long before raising to 300. Now I think we have a pretty clear-cut call in this spot. I am a little bit worried about the raise. I think the opponent could have trapped with a set on the flop, just trying to let me catch up type of thing in a 3-bet pot. Some more possible they turn a set with pocket 4s as well, but I think it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that they do have a club draw, or even like pocket jacks or pocket 10s are like trying to see where they're at type of thing. So I throw in the call, play in a river, which is the 3 of diamonds. Pretty bricky brick if you ask me. So I go ahead and check it over to the villain, who checks back really quickly, and they end up showing king 9 of spades. I end up showing my hand and winning this pot, but there you go. They were trying to protection raise one of their weaker pairs on the turn, and then I'm like, probably could have got a river lead paid off with my aggressive image, or at least a C-bet paid off with my aggressive image. So kicking myself a little bit for not fully exploiting the table image I obviously have. So a little bit of a bounce back, at least in terms of results in the previous hand. Hopefully that gives us an inflated sense of confidence that we can carry forward and play this next hand better. There's a limp from a passive low jack, and then I'm next to act in the hijack with king 6 of diamonds. Pretty easy fold with this hand, but yeah, maybe not playing the best today. Definitely showing that over aggressive bias that I have struggled with for the majority of this challenge, to be honest. I raise it up to 20, and then I get called by the small blind as well as the original limper. So all things considered, not an awful result, but definitely should just be folding this hand pre-flop. Whatever the case, we are 3 ways to a flop of king 7-5 with 2 clubs and 1 diamond. So when the action checks to me, looking to maximally exploit my aggressive table image, definitely going to be putting in a C-bet with a hand this strong. I go ahead and make it 20, and then the small blind folds, and the low jack looks over at me and just says, I'm just going to call this one, as he throws in the chip. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not the best with live tells and stuff like that, but I think when the opponent is insinuating that they do have a strong hand, that they could potentially check raise, they're trying to represent strength, which makes me think they're actually not that strong. And I think the opponent's going to have a lot of like middling showdown value hands on this board, essentially everything through like 7x to pocket jacks. They're probably going to play as a limp call, being a passive opponent, and maybe a king X combination that they're not super confident in the kicker, which would be an issue for us because they probably do have us out kicked. But I think most of their range is going to be those weaker pairs, and we can definitely look to get value, particularly if the table thinks I'm a nutcase. So when the turn is the 5 of hearts pairing bottom pair, some concern that they do have trips now, but when they check it over to me, definitely want to keep betting to try and get value from worse pairs. I go ahead and size it to 60. Then the low jack throws in the call. So we do like that we're getting action here. Definitely a little bit dicey because they do have some king X combinations, which pretty much all of which will have us out kicked. I mean, the vast majority will anyway. So when we're heads up to a river, and the river is the 6 of clubs, we're doing jumping jacks. We absolutely love this river because now we beat any of those king X combinations. So when they check it over to me, we can value bet with impunity, in my opinion. I will say though, I don't want to go too large with the bet sizing here, just because I do think those 7x through pocket jacks hands will be somewhat elastic. The king X probably will not, but to get the most value from the majority of his range, I think we just want to use a smaller bet size, and I think his range is weighted more towards towards the weaker stuff when he did do the speech play thing on the flop. So I decide on a bet of 100, maybe could go a little bit larger, whatever the case though, I make it 100, and then the low jack is in the tank a good 60 seconds or so. Sounds like maybe I did pick the exact right sizing here, and then after the 60-second tank, they end up throwing in the call. That's good news for us. We show our 3-pair, and then the villain was actually kind enough to show us they did have king queen, so we absolutely sucked out on the river, and even if we're not playing great today, we are running hot. Let's go. G'day poker people, I'm here today to tell you about my new favourite app that is helping me improve my game day by day, and it is the Fastroll Poker app. Essentially what it is, it's a hand history tracker for live poker players, something akin to Poker Tracker for online poker, but they're bridging the gap and they're making it for live poker, following a very user-friendly, intuitive software. You can input the hand histories literally right after you're done playing them in a matter of seconds. It takes me about 15 to 30 seconds after I've played each hand, and they're stored on a database inside the app. And the beautiful thing about that is after the session's over, I can go back and look over the hands I've played and see what I'm doing well, and more commonly where I've punted off a lot of money, and thus helping me know what the leaks in my games are and then how I can plug them. So I cannot recommend this app strongly enough if you are a serious poker player who wants to use this tool to help improve your game. I've been offered many sponsorship deals in the past from things I think were a bit shady. This is the first thing I actually wanted to promote because I think it is actually a very good tool which will help you guys actually improve your poker game. So if you want to try it out, use the code LEEBETS when you purchase an annual subscription, and you'll get the first month free. If you don't like it after the first month, you're totally fine to cancel without charge, but I really think you guys are going to love this app and can't recommend it strongly enough. It's a massive tool to help your game. So use the code LEEBETS on an annual subscription and you'll get the first month free. For now though, let's fast roll back into the gambling. I'm pretty happy with how I played that last one, so let's see if we can keep that type of thing up and get over the first 3 hands. So yet again, there's another open limp from a passive, a low jack. I'm next to act in the hijack with ace-10 of hearts. I raise it up to 20, and then we get no less than 4 different callers. So I think maybe this is where I start using a larger raise size pre-flop with a tighter range when I'm getting this much action. Whatever the case though, we are 5 ways to a flop of king 8-3 with 2 hearts, so we have the nut flush draw here. You absolutely love to see that. The small blind and the low jack check it over to me, and I think in a 5-way pot we probably should just be checking the vast majority of our range. Maybe if we have a super nutted hand, there's a lot of merit to betting to just try and get money in the pot, but when we have like a nut flush draw is definitely a very strong hand, but I think we're going to benefit a lot from letting the action check through. We're more likely to flush over flush someone that way, and we get to see what happens with the hand going forward, get more information when the 2 players that have position on me get to act. Apparently, the good play only lasted for 1 hand, and we're getting back into spewy territory because I do c-bet for 40 using a large size as well. Really not in love with this bet in a super multi-way pot, particularly with 2 people left to act. But yeah, just definitely playing too aggressive today in all honesty. Whatever the case, I do make it 40 though, and we only get called by a passive, very short stacked cutoff to my exacts left. So we are heads up to the turn, which is the 10 of diamonds, giving us a pair along with our nut flush draw. I just check it over to the short stack villain, really want to go ahead and see what they do. I think the chances they have a stronger hand than me is going to be pretty likely since they're going to play a lot of the offsuit like king 9 through ace king combinations and always going to 3-bet ace king as a passive opponent. So I check it over to them, see what they do, and they go ahead and bet 50. Now I'm going to state the obvious, I'm not folding this hand for this price. We're almost getting exact odds to draw to our flush and 2 pairs. Having said that though, don't want to rip it all in either. Like I said, I think the opponent's going to have a lot of strong top pair hands, which they're probably not going to fold, and if we do rip it all in, it's going to be very hard to get called by a worse hand unless it's specifically a worse flush draw. So I think we don't have anything to do here except for just call and play rivers. It's going to be pretty awkward playing the river out of position against a short stack, but I think that's really the only sensible option here. So that's what I do. I throw in the call, and then we are heads up to the river, which is the king of spades. Yet again, I don't think there's any merit in leaning out here. There's just not a lot of hands that are worse than mine that the opponent's going to have in their range. If they had a pair worse than a 10, they'll probably check on the turn. So I just check it over to them, see what they're going to do, really hoping for a check back, honestly, which doesn't happen. They go all in for 120. Now we are getting a fantastic price, 2 hero call here, but honestly, I don't think we should be. I'm so worried the opponent did river trips. They have so many offsuit King X combinations, and just being that they're a short stacked passive opponent, I think the likelihood that they're bluffing is very unlikely, particularly when we do have hearts ourselves. I think that's going to be their main bluffing hands, so I really don't think there's anything to do here, but just make a prudent hero fold, a good hero fold in my opinion. So I do muck the ace-10. I'm very happy with the discipline I showed in this hand. I just wish I showed discipline earlier in the session by not bluffing so damn much. In this next hand, a tight aggressive cutoff makes it 12, so pretty odd sizing there, and when the action's on my small blind with pocket 8s, I would be 3-betting this spot anyway, but definitely going to do it when the opponent uses a raise size that's not in a $5 increment. I go ahead and make it 50, and then the cutoff throws in the call. So it heads up to a flop of 994 rainbow. When the action's on me, I think this is probably a good spot to just stick to my default play when I'm out of position in a heads up pot and just check it over to the opponent, maybe induce some bluffs from there, overcard combinations, and played a bit cautious just because I do think, being that we're in the 1-3 game and the opponent has position on me, I don't think they're going to 3-bet the majority of their overpairs, like pocket queens, pocket jacks are probably just going to be pure flats in this spot. So I should be checking it. Going with my over-aggression bias again, I do actually decide to c-bet for 35. Now, I will say there is some merit to betting here, just for equity denial reasons. You know, don't let ace-jack hit on the turn for free. But I think if I'm doing that, I should be using a larger size than 35. So really no idea what's going on with this bet here. I think it's just a fishy play, in all honesty. Whatever the case, though, I make it 35. And then the cutoff, much to my surprise, actually raises to 100. So I wasn't quite expecting that, but still concerned they do have some of those overpairs I listed. Even if they trapped, being that they were playing in the pot in position with pocket aces, wouldn't be totally shocked either. So I'm honestly already kind of tempted to fold here, but then I do think maybe the opponent is over bluffing with those overcard combinations, in which case they're going to kind of be owning us if we do fold a hand this strong. So I do throw in the call here, but it's a very tentative call going forward. So we are still heads up to a turn, which is the 7 of hearts, putting out backdoor hearts. And then I just check it over to the opponent in flow. Then they check back. So as much as I do like getting to see a river for free, I still think if they did raise on the flop with like pocket jacks or pocket 10s, they could be checking for pot control type reasons. So I definitely don't think I'm out of the woods just yet. And then the river is the jack of spades. Still going to proceed with a lot of caution. We don't want to fall into the opponent's trap if they did check on the turn for pot control. So I check it over to them again, and then they go ahead and bet 300. So a very slight overbet of the pot. Still concerned that they do have some of those aforementioned overpairs, and most notably pocket jacks did boat up on the river, and the fact that they're using the overbet sizing, I'm like, maybe they have pocket jacks specifically, or I guess they potentially could have a bluff, like if they just randomly raised on the flop with king queen because they know it'll look strong, or they just think I'm stabbing super wide. I could see them potentially using a bluff size like this on the river to try and get me off of a hand like I have right now, but I'm not totally convinced that's the dynamics of what's going on. I think it is a lot more likely the opponent is betting pocket jacks, pocket queens, or probably not using this size with pocket 10s, but I think more likely that one of the other hands we lose to. Not totally out of the realm of possibility they did have ace jack either, and they're going for the value bet here, figuring I'm going to lead a lot of my strong hands on the river. So I really don't want to be paying off this bet. And yet again, we make another disciplined fold in the session. Even if I'm bluffing way too aggressively, at least I have the discipline to fold when I think I'm second best. I fold my hand, and then the opponent mucks his cards. Later on, he would tell me that he had queen 10, and I'm not going to say that he's lying, but seeing is believing in poker. Like, I think the same kind of guy who would tell you he's bluffing will probably just show you when he actually is bluffing type thing to try and tilt you. So I'm just saying, I'm not fully convinced that he was bluffing. If he did bluff, it was a good bluff. I did totally believe him, but don't know if I do believe him that he was bluffing here. Let me know what you think. I don't know if I've been playing the best so far this session, but this next hand's definitely fun, even if I didn't play it well. Let's hop into it. I'm in the low jack with a 9-7 of spades. I go ahead and raise it up to 10, and then I get called by a tight aggressive button as well as a tight aggressive big blind. So we are a total of 3 ways to a flop of king 9-8 with 2 clubs and 1 heart. When the big blind checks it over to me, I have not been making a lot of disciplined flop checks this session, but I start to in this one. I go ahead and check it. Definitely the right play as a monkey in the middle with a middling strength showdown value hand. I check it over to the button, who goes ahead and bets 30. The big blind gets out of the way, and when we're facing a bet size this large, I think it's kind of a borderline call or fold spot. Definitely don't want to be check raising here. I think the opponent's going to have a bunch of king X combinations in their range. They're going to have a bunch of flush draws and straight draws on this board as well too, so don't think we can be folding just yet, although the large bet sizing is a little bit concerning. But I throw in the call here, and then we're heads up to a turn, which is the 5 of diamonds. We're still going to check it over to the villain in flow, and then they go ahead and bet 30 yet again. So the action's back on me here, and now I think their range when they do bet large on the flop and they down bet on the turn is mostly going to be weaker one pair hands. I think if they had ace king or king queen, they will probably use a larger bet size, trying to charge all the draws. And if they had a draw themselves, I think rather than down betting on the turn, they would probably just check if they wanted to get to the river for as cheap as possible, particularly when they're in position. And you know me, when I smell some weakness, I am absolutely going to pounce on it and try and mix in the bluff, and want to start bluffing now because I think there's a very high chance they check their weaker one pair hands back on the river. So got to start bluffing now. I go ahead and check raise it to 110, deliberately using a smaller bet size because I do want their weaker one pair hands to call now, only so that the pot will be bigger on the river, and when I bluff on the river, I make more EV that way. So it's definitely like a little bit of a fancy play type of thing, and sometimes fancy plays can come back to bite you in the ass, but we're going to go for it here, trying to maximize EV to make that $60 an hour here in the home stretch. I check raise it to 110, and then villain throws in the call. So we are heads up to the river, which is the queen of clubs, and I notice when the river hits and the opponent sees it, they kind of flinch. And now, again, not the best with live reads, but I think them flinching when they see this river is pretty polarized. My read on the turn could have been right, that they do have a king, and now they're really worried because the flush draw got in, and that's kind of making them scared. Or it could be the exact opposite. They hit their flush draw, and now they're like, oh, yes, like the flinch is just them being excited. I really didn't know what it was with this villain, but I made my read on the turn that the opponent likely did not have a flush draw, much more likely they had a king X combination, and I'm going to go with my plan and try to blast them off of it. Want to use an overbet sizing here too, just to give them an awful price. 2 hero call on a bad run out like this, so I go ahead and make it 400, and then the villain folds. So let's go. I don't know if we can be celebrating. We've been blasting off all session, and this is the first one to work, but we finally get a bluff through, and you love to see it. So for this next hand, we have a straddle on. Let's go. It's the first straddle we've had this session, which is kind of crazy. Whatever the case, though, the straddle's actually on in the cutoff they were posting, which probably explains why it's finally a straddle. Whatever the case, the action folds to my under the gun position, which is actually kind of like the hijack since we're playing six-handed, and I peel 8-7 of clubs. Definitely going to raise this hand up. I make it 25, and then I only get called by the tight aggressive cutoff. So we're heads up to a flop of ace-king-5 rainbow with 1 club. In this spot, I'm going to stick to my default and check it out of position in a heads-up pot, but particularly on an ace-high board where I think the cutoff is going to have a lot of offsuit ace-x combinations I really don't want to spew bluff off into, so I check it over to them. Then they check back, so we get a free turn, and I'm very glad we do because it's the 6 of clubs, which is pretty much the best turn card I could have chosen in the deck. It not only gives us an open-ended straight draw, but a flush draw as well. So when the action's on me, really want to start pushing my equity. It's not totally impossible that the opponent does have an ace-x combination that checked on the flop, but it's just a little bit less likely, so we want to put a little bit of pressure on their range here. So I go ahead and bet 30, and then the cutoff doesn't think too long before throwing in the call. So we do have a lot of outs to improve on the river, and the river is the queen of diamonds. That is absolutely not one of the outs. We are sitting on the river with 8 high and no dreams. Well, maybe a little bit of a dream. I think we can still continue to bluff here. I think even if the opponent did check on the flop with a hand like ace-6 offsuit, for example, they're probably going to hate this river. They're probably going to give me credit, all the credit in the world for like king-queen, jack-10, and it just seems like a spot it's going to be hard for me to find natural bluffs. So in that case, probably a good spot for me to go for it. It's a tight aggressive opponent as well, so they definitely do have a fold button. So you know me, I can't help myself. I yet again am going with a river overbet bluff here. I make it 175, and then the cutoff kind of goes, ugh. and he folds his cards very frustratedly. So not sure what he folded, but I'm glad that he folded because we're taking down a pot with 8 high, and finally our bluffs are starting to work. So after we finally got 2 bluffs through, I decided to not push my luck too much and ended up cashing out after 8 hours and 10 minutes of play, which was plenty of time to get us past the 50 hours for the month of December and collect that cheeky little $500 bonus, which means I've played all of the hours I am going to for this challenge at the 1-3, but before we get into that, in terms of how I feel about my play today, I am largely very unhappy. I definitely think I was way too over-aggressive, bluffing in spots that I absolutely shouldn't. Honestly, the ace-10 suited hand is an absolute punt, maybe one of the worst punts I've done on this channel in all honesty, so really disappointed with my play. Having said that, there were a few plays I really liked. I think I made some disciplined folds throughout the way, and I would have had much worse results if I did pay off in those spots. I just couldn't quite keep the discipline up when it came to holding back on bad bluffs. So gonna go with a B grade for today. It's definitely on the lower end of a B grade, but it's those good plays, the good discipline that helps me from going too much. And had decent results on the session as well. Won 270, which is pretty good because that combined with the $500 bonus for the 50 hours in the month of December has gotten us up to a total of $9,723, which means our hourly rate after 158 hours and 45 minutes is $61.24 per hour playing the 1-3. Let's freaking go. We did it. We beat the $60 an hour mark. Definitely long stretches of this challenge where I did feel like that number was unattainable, and I would be completely ignorant if I didn't point out the fact that 158 hours is not a huge sample by any means. If I was really looking to see what my long-term win rate playing 1-3 would be, I would probably need to play at like a bare minimum 500 hours, but really, like I've explained, I've got the bankroll to go play 2-5 now, and if I can beat this 1-3 game for $60 an hour, like at least in theory, I should be able to beat 2-5 for a larger win rate. So I really don't want to be capping my success in the games of poker, particularly now that I've got a fat mortgage to try and pay off. But we did it. We set the goal, and we just very narrowly ended up getting over that goal. $61 an hour in a 1-3 game, even a bigger 1-3 game like the one at Derby, is something I'm very proud of, in all honesty, even over the shorter sample. I didn't actually think that I was going to hit the mark. Initially, I set the goal at 50, and even that was to try and push myself. But once we started having good results, getting comfortable in the game, I really thought that maybe 60 was possible, and we've been able to do it for the first 158 hours at least. So very happy with the effort, but it's going to be on to bigger and hopefully better things moving forward with the poker channel. And we've got plenty more vlogs to come out, and they'll just be in bigger games going forward. So make sure you hit subscribe and you'll get the next vlog when it comes out. It'll be a 2-5 session from One Eye Jacks in Sarasota. And believe me, we hit the 2-5 streets with some absolute action. So hit subscribe and you'll get that video when it comes out. For now though, I'm out of here. Nunye Casio.